Three.
1, 2, 3. Yeah,
1, 2,
Rob
3,
Browne.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Say that. Who is that?
We're
From
counting.
your childhood.
Yeah, and we're counting. Clean up, everybody clean up. Rob Browne, Memphis, Brendan Martin, Ocala, Florida. We've got a lot to talk about today. Got a great lineup. Jordan Davis Hill, 247 Sports, covers the Georgia Bulldogs exceptionally well. Does a great Junkyard Dog podcast. Everybody needs to watch it. Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South from Orlando. He's got a lot to talk about. He's an IU alum, largest living alumni base, something like 850,000 alumni. I don't know if they're all alive still. It's a lot of people. And Yancy Porter in video today, the latest from Oxford. He's going to be on the Restream video link. We'll be able to see him in person, so we're going to have a lot to talk about. Do us a favor. Take a picture with your phone of the QR codes. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. 8 channels of live streaming. Share us and like us. Every one of you that know me, I'm lucky to have a lot of friends. Watch this on Facebook. Share us and like us. It multiplies us and grows this show like kudzu. I mean, it just spreads it everywhere. We're growing, and we got the best EP in the world, Brendan Martin, putting out a ton of reels. So, look, let's get started. Bring in Jordan Davis Hill. And, Jordan, we watched, Ole Miss win over Georgia and then go down in the last few seconds when Carson Beck, not known for his speed, but there's something called competitive speed when there's nobody between you and the goal line in the end zone, and he did it. Where does Georgia go right now? Into the portal, recruiting, wherever, to find their top needs, offense, defense, special teams. And first off, thanks more than you know for sharing your time with us.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me back. I mean, the biggest focus these last couple weeks, a lot of it's been on retention for Georgia, is bringing back guys that they counted on from last year. But they've done such a good job in the last few years when it comes to portal season of really zeroing in on a couple of positions each time and deciding this is the position we need to go take care of. Safety has been a big one. So far, they've gotten 2 guys out of the portal, Khalil Barnes from Clemson, Jamarli Riddle from East Carolina, a Camden County kid. So I think people are excited to see him come back to the state of Georgia. And now we're kind of watching right now offensive tackle. They lost Monroe Freeling. They're starting left tackle on Monday. He's going to the NFL. Okay. We're all kind of keeping an eye on Ernest Green, the starting right tackle, to see what he decides to do. If he were to go, I think that they're going to go really, really hard in the portal for an offensive tackle. At this point, it's not clear who that is. I know that a Colorado offensive tackle went in last night, but it sounds like that is going to be a heck of a bidding war to get him. So they've done a pretty good job, I think, at this point of filling some big needs. I said safety, receiver as well. They go get Isaiah Canyon from Georgia Tech. So they've done a good job, I think, of getting this roster in a good spot going into 2026. We may see a couple more additions, but I think for the most part, they're done with who they're adding. And I'll shout out, too, they added another receiver, Dallas Dickerson, who's from North Oconee, just right around the corner. Yep. He had signed with Kentucky, and then they fired Mark Stoops. So they've done a pretty good job of adding to this roster, getting ready for 2026.
Well, what kind of a process does Kirby like to use in the portal? Does he look at kids maybe they recruited out of high school and didn't sign, follows their progress, and then if they're climbing the ladder, hey, we've got a relationship, we're coming back after you? Because one of the guys on the call for Ole Miss game last week said the running back, Kewan Lacey, signed out of Texas with Missouri, and Lane Kiffin had recruited him, said, all right, I'll see you next year. It's not that easy, is it?
No, it's never that easy, but they do really value having those prior relationships. I think a great example is a guy I mentioned a second ago, Khalil Barnes, also from North Oconee. They've gone really and gotten a lot of local guys, but he's a guy that Georgia was aware of when he was a high school recruit. He winds up going to Clemson, and it's just a guy they kept an eye on, especially going into this offseason, knowing they needed a safety. They needed help there. Given what they've lost, Ja'Cory Thomas graduates. They've had some guys that didn't really play big roles, but they were options at safety, like Adrian Maddox. He's transferred to Kansas State. they knew that they had to get help there. So they value those prior relationships. I think they would prefer when they go into the portal to get guys that they knew from high school recruiting. One, because they have those relationships, but two, they know what kind of kid they're talking about, even if it's a guy they didn't land. Another example, Isaiah Canyon. Now, this is a guy I don't think Georgia was hard on, going after when he was at Warner Robins, but the guy that recruited him to Georgia Tech is Josh Crawford, who is now Georgia's running backs coach. So there was that relationship there. They really value those relationships. They want to make sure they know what they're getting in these kids. And you can't do that every single time. Yeah. But when you have those relationships, it gives them an idea of what kind of kid they're bringing in, but also what kind of football player they're bringing in.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday with Pete Cordelli and Ellis Johnson about Nick Saban. I never signed a kid I didn't see work out personally. Kurt Cignetti, a lot like that. And I imagine Kirby, listen, Kurt Cignetti's having some success, but he has no jewelry, okay? I mean, there are other coaches. I know he's the hot one right now, but when you look at Georgia right now, how far removed are they, based on what you saw in the playoffs, from winning another CFP title?
I mean, I think they're not that far off, and it's what makes 2026 so interesting to me, just to see what they're going to be able to do, especially with Gunnar Stockton having another year, of experience and having that full season as a starter under his belt. And as y'all can imagine, guys, the junkyard, our message board, there have been people upset. They want to burn the whole thing down. They lost by 5 in the quarterfinals when they really, it should have been a 3-point loss. They had the very weird safety at the end. I mean, it was right there. So I think that outside of the program, you got fans that are scared that, the dynasty or being a championship contender is over. I get the sense within it, they understand what kind of talent they've got, that they've still got an opportunity. Now, there's still some question marks, like I said, offensive tackle. Wide receiver, I think as it stands, the guy who put up the most receiving yards that's coming back is London Humphreys. So Are you comfortable with that, or do you want to go get a little bit more experience? Now, it's not clear right now, who would be another receiver they go add, but we still got, I think, a couple days of this portal being open, so it might not be done at wide receiver. So I think that they're still in good shape. I mean, it's not going to be easy. And as we were talking, Rob, before we started recording, the margins between these teams has gotten so much smaller, and the talent is more spread out. It's no gimme, but I think that this team is still a championship contender. They've still got some questions, but I know that that's the case with even the top teams in the country going into next year.
Yeah, and I think 91% of the roster when y'all played Ole Miss was not high school kids that Georgia had signed. 34% on Ole Miss's roster. Completely different. And you split. You played twice, and they were both really down to the last few plays. I mean, that's just how it went. So you can't say there's a demonstrably obvious argument in either case, can you?
Absolutely not. And I think it's interesting, too. And it's very easy, I think, for fans to lose sight of it. But going back to spring practice, I mean, Kirby talked multiple times. I don't remember the number he threw out, but he was talking about a huge chunk of their roster was first and second year guys. Well, then why would you panic if you're a Georgia fan about coming back with a team that was, had a very large percentage of it underclassmen? Now, you need to keep those guys in your program. They've lost some guys to the portal, but really nobody that I think is worth freaking out about. I mean, the biggest guy they've lost at this point is Janelle Aguero, who was the starting star, but it sure looked like Rayshawn Dinkins had unseated him, supplanted him late in the season. So I think that they're in good shape. And again, I understand fans are frustrated. We've talked about it on our podcast, but, having gone to the Sugar Bowl 2 straight years and ending the year with 2 straight losses, but there's still a lot of young talent on this team. As long as those guys stay on board, get ready for another year, I think that they're in really good shape when it comes to trying to contend again by the time we get to next fall.
Are you hearing any rumblings that there's going to be 16, 24-team playoff? What are you hearing from the Georgia side? They're going to meet the 26th, aren't they?
I'm not sure on that, and I think that eventually that's going to happen, that we get to the 16-team playoff. I'm really interested to see how they put it together. I give Dan Lanning a lot of credit. I thought his vision for it makes the most sense with no buys and try to end this thing around January 1st. I mean, this goes on way too long, and I'm saying that as someone who loves college football and wants to make the most of the playoff. Let's really work on this calendar. Everybody, I mean, that's the hot topic, the calendar. We got to do something with the calendar. Well, then let's work within the constraints of the calendar. And I say roll with what Dan Lanning was saying. Let's try to finish this thing up right around January 1st. Then that gives you a little bit more runway for all the teams when it comes to the transfer portal, getting guys enrolled. I think this is add drop week at UGA this week. And I was talking to one of the other beat writers yesterday and was saying, just imagine what this would be like if you're a Miami or an Indiana. You're still playing. Well, you're still also trying to put your roster together for 2026. I do not envy that coaching staff, either one of those coaching staffs. It's super tight. I'm expecting us to get to 16, and I'm really hoping that they are very mindful of what that schedule looks like, and let's try to finish this thing a little bit sooner than Martin Luther King Day and ending that on a Monday night, January 18th, January 19th.
Yeah, well, because spring practice, a lot of people start the second or third week of February. So I'm with you. As much as we love college football, you better be careful about burnout and just dragging it on too long. I mean, whatever your favorite food is, think about it. If you eat it too much, you get sick of it. I worked at a pizza stand right after I graduated high school at the Memphis Chicks baseball games. I got tired of pizza after 3 or 4 nights. You get sick of it. I'm looking ahead to next year. We've already seen the 9-game schedule. Do you like going 9 with 16? Pete Cordelli says, hey, you got 18 in the Big Ten, go 9. You got 16, stay at 8. People worry it's another loss, but it's also an opportunity for other teams that might be struggling to get another win in the conference. What's your thought?
I like them moving to 9, just more so than anything, just trying to get these teams to all play each other at least, every 2 years, which I think matters. I mean, this is something that still kind of shocked when we got the 2026 schedule. Georgia has still not played in College Station. Texas A&M has been a member of the SEC since 2012. So, trying to get rid of that, I think maybe in 2027 that finally gets marked off. But I'm someone that I'm glad they're doing it because that adds more quality games that we're just going to see on a weekly basis. Now, at the same time, I am really surprised that the SEC did it because, you just mentioned, Rob, you're throwing in an additional loss for a lot of these teams, and Kirby talked about it after the SEC title game. So I'm glad they're doing it. I understand some of the concern about it, but I'm never going to complain about better games and getting to see those on a weekly basis, and I hope the SEC makes the most of them.
Yeah. Real quick, Georgia basketball, they got the dog on the court now. Is Mike White bringing in a lot of the players and recruiting the metro Atlanta area like you think he should? Because you can win a national championship just by doing that in the 22 county, 6.5 million people.
Yeah, they've not really hit Georgia super hard, but I think they've been very smart about how they've gone about recruiting. And something that has really stood out to me this year, especially, they didn't sign any guys in sort of that early period. And that, the last couple of years, they've gotten a guy or two. But I think that they realize they've had more success waiting until after the season. They get a better sense of what their roster is going to be, who's coming back. But two, some of the best guys that they have signed since Mike got here, they signed in that late period. Silas Demery Jr., who's now at UConn, Blue Kane, Santos Surreal. Those are all guys who were set to sign elsewhere. Coaching changes, things like that happen. They reopen. I think that they've been very wise about how they've gone about high school recruiting.
All right, let people know you do a great podcast. And again, Twitter-wise, you're one of the best. It's constant. Anything to do with Georgia, you're covering it.
Appreciate it. Dogs247.com on Twitter, at Jordan Davis Hill on Twitter, at Dogs247. The Junkyard Dogcast is the name of the podcast. We're going to do another episode 12 p.m. Eastern Time and 11 a.m. Central. A lot to get into with all the portal additions, guys who have left. Nate Frazier's coming back. Chauncey Bowens is coming back. Still one big NFL draft decision we're waiting on from Ernest Green. But appreciate you guys having me on, and excited to get that thing rolling today, and excited to keep this offseason thing rolling right along.
Hey, man, it makes the grass grow. We love it, man. Take care. See you next week.
Appreciate you guys.
You bet. All right, let's bring in Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South. And Connor, heard you Friday on Chuck Oliver's show. I was out running. I was at the park. Yeah, and great stuff. And I was telling him I've got a really good friend who's a chef for an Indiana Hoosier up in Indianapolis. Major guy. He's contributing to NIL. They're going down to the game, and Roger's an Ole Miss fan. He's from England, but he's an Ole Miss fan. But he said what's driving the Hoosier Nation, and he's really become a Hoosier living up there for 6 years in Indy, he said, is the lack of respect. And 850,000 alumni, largest living alumni base in the country. And Chuck asked you, who are the people driving it? You go, you ever heard of Mark Cuban? That was awesome.
He hasn't yet. He just made his first contribution to athletics. He's spent money at IU and a lot of other areas, sports broadcasting, and he has been a huge contributor. And if you really want to get into the weeds with the way that the student newspaper has been funded and stuff like that, he was trying to play a big part in being able to maintain the Indiana Daily Student's independence and all that stuff. But there's money. There's a lot of money. Kelly School of Business is not just Fernando Mendoza. There are a lot of people that have been waiting for something like this. And if you think about how much IU has struggled in big revenue sports over the course of the last 2 decades, I think people look at it and they think, oh, well, basketball, they spend big and they do this, and this. I started going to IU in 2008. They have not been to an Elite Eight during that time, and they have been no further than the Sweet 16. And there are a lot of people that have just been waiting for anything like this, not necessarily hoping and anticipating, but just waiting for something to be able to go big on. So I do think that even with those crazy ticket prices, we're now in $4,000 range for the get-in price for Miami. I think IU fans are going to have Miami fans outnumbered in their own building.
Yeah. It's funny. Talk about Indiana's basketball and football flip. Look at Florida. Look at Auburn. Auburn was a great football school at one time. Now, they're good in basketball. This year, they got a new coach. Florida won the national championship last year. It's hard to do both, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, because I think Florida's a good example. Lon Kruger left Florida in the mid-90s to go to Illinois because Illinois was a basketball school. And he viewed this as, well, I'm never going to be able to compete with Steve Spurrier. I'm going to have people on this campus who just want to talk about football. Yeah. And this is a real thing that you battle when you're at a place like that, or at a place like Kentucky, where, football players go to Kentucky and they walk around campus. They want to be the big guys on campus. And you know that there's really nothing you can do that's going to change that. And so for those who say, well, why hasn't IU been able to do this? First of all, the way that you can construct a roster has changed over the course of the last couple of years. Curt Cignetti recognized that. He capitalized on it. And also, there wasn't any proof of concept. It's so difficult to sell a vision when, the program has apathy post-September. In a lot of these years where everybody just moves on to basketball. And when you look up and it's 28-7 at halftime, and you have people that are like, well, am I really going to stay for the second half? They're not going to come back. There's no hope. There's no belief. All of a sudden, Curt Cignetti changed that. The proof of concept was there in year one, and what they're doing in year two is beyond my wildest dreams.
It really is. And Dave Bartu, College Football Matrix, who's a regular on this show now, and Chuck Oliver long before that, said the last 4 years is the greatest run he's seen in his lifetime. Would you agree with that? What Cignetti's done at JMU in Indiana. They hadn't won a national title yet, but considering where they were.
If they win a national championship, yeah. I mean, he took over a 3-9 program. Yeah. As recently as 2 weeks ago, he's just trying to get Indiana its first bowl victory since 1991. You know how hard it is to go that long without a bowl victory? Yeah. I mean, you can get to the Pinstripe Bowl now if we want to get into that missed kick a decade ago that kind of, gave him a raw deal against Duke. We can do that, but we don't really need to. This is a program that had such historic failure at every single level. The example I always like to bring up is Lee Corso. There's a famous story of Lee Corso in 1976 where IU takes the lead against Ohio State. They're up 7-6. It's the first time that IU has led against Ohio State in 20 years. And Lee Corso calls a timeout to pause the game to be able to take a picture of the scoreboard with his players posed under it, but just being like, oh my God, we got to lead against Ohio State. They lost that game 47-7. I mean, this is the type of thing that just illustrates how bad IU was. And it's not just the fact that they were the losingest program in college football up until Cignetti showed up. Now Northwestern owns that title, but there are so many different examples you can point to see historical dysfunction. And so, yes, it is one of the greatest sports stories, one of the great sports turnarounds ever.
Well, when you look at the SEC now, and one of the things that we look at is, this could be a third straight year Big Ten wins a national championship. I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to beat Miami. It's a 7.5-point favorite. I really do. So SEC alumni bases pale in comparison size-wise to these Big Ten schools. Where's the path for the SEC to get back? Because financially, again, it's no. How do you compete? You start getting excitement among the largest living alumni base in the country, Indiana. How do you stop that?
I don't know that you do.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think that the depth that the SEC once had has been distributed in ways that it wasn't during the run of dominance from 2006 to 2022. I don't necessarily think the SEC is falling off the face of the earth. And for those that think just the postseason is the only metric that matters, the SEC was 12-6 against other power conference foes in non-conference play, a stat that doesn't really get brought up because when you're on the outside looking in of yet another national championship for the first time this many years in a row since 2002, then yeah, people are going to assume that the SEC has fallen off. And at the top, I think it has. I still think the depth is there. I think this year has actually shown that these conferences are probably a lot closer together than we give them credit for. If you actually get into the records, combine the records of the postseason with non-conference play and see their records against each other, and it kind of tells a different story than what these conference commissioners are trying to talk about with playoff bids and all that stuff. But that's kind of why this, it feels like the Big Ten has this sense of urgency to want to get to 24 with the auto bids and guarantee that they capitalize on this window wherein they've been really, really good. Is the Big Ten depth suddenly better than the SEC depth? I wouldn't go there, but at the top, they have had better teams. They have had these teams that have been able to get on the stage and win. The SEC in the last 3 years, they're 3-7 against other power conference foes in the college football playoff. And the 3 games the SEC has won have been against conference champs who would not have qualified as at-large teams. Yeah. So to me, that tells the story that the SEC just hasn't necessarily had those elite programs at the top. Depth is still going to be there, but I think coaching is the biggest way that that's going to turn around. And I do think that Nick Saban not being there anymore, that matters. But, the Big Ten has had great coaching. The SEC has had really good coaching, but maybe just not at that elite level yet.
I tell you what, the SEC, this is food for thought, something to think about. Better be careful of becoming the ACC in basketball. They were so dominant. Then the SEC decided to focus on basketball. Back in 2014, when Mike Slive said, we got the SEC network, we've got to put a better product out there. ESPN's paying a lot of money for it. Look at ACC basketball compared to SEC basketball now. SEC football has been so good for so long, I think complacency is also set in, like, oh, we can fix this in a heartbeat. It's not about high school recruiting anymore, is it? Only.
No, it's and why would it be? You get these guys on campus for 1 year and they can just go. And if they don't like where they're at on the depth chart, or they feel like, man, I might still be a second stringer going into spring practice, and this team says that I can start immediately, I'm going to go elsewhere. I mean, I think it's just tough. It's tough to retain talent. The SEC was long able to retain talent. I mean, for up until as recently as a couple of years ago, you couldn't even transfer within the conference unless you were a grad transfer. I mean, it's kind of crazy that those things like that have, once protected the SEC is no longer there. Like take a guy like Kewan Lacey, for example. Kewan Lacey didn't play in the way that he hoped he would in his freshman year at Mizzou. Yeah. And he goes to Ole Miss, and then he's all of a sudden he's the third leader, number 3 all time in single season rushing touchdowns in SEC history. And he had an unbelievable season, for the best season that Ole Miss has ever had. So you get these guys sometimes that realize, well, I have a path to be able to play that's quicker than the one that I signed up for. And so it's tougher to retain talent. The SEC has always prided itself on high school talent, but it's just different with roster construction in this day and age. And it's up to the SEC to be able to adapt to that.
Well, look back at another running back out of Pike Crossing, right now between Montgomery and Auburn, 35 minutes from Auburn's campus. Kid never was even recruited by Auburn. But Quinshon Judkins, over 1,600 yards rushing, one of the best seasons ever for a freshman period. The offense that Lane Kiffin put in, I don't think it's going to just wither and disappear overnight, is it? Because those numbers with Lacey speak volumes.
Yeah, and John David Baker is going to be an interesting hire for Ole Miss, and given what he was able to do at East Carolina, a team that did not have necessarily the talent that Ole Miss did, I think he's somebody that it becomes one of the more intriguing coaches in the SEC next year, given what they're going to return. Now, TBD on this quarterback situation. Obviously, the Deuce Knight commitment that happened over this past weekend, immediately after we found out Trinidad Chambliss, he got his waiver denied. He's going to still try and seek other options with Thomas Morris, his attorney, to be able to find a way to play in college football next year. But I'm kind of right now assuming that Deuce Knight is going to be the guy. And all of a sudden, if that's the 1-2 punch with Deuce Knight and Kewan Lacey, that's really, really intriguing, because that is an offense that I think can score a ton of points. Now, defensively, they were a little bit too bend don't break this year, and that's why, in my opinion, they weren't able to get that key stop and get to a national championship berth. But they have firepower in ways that I think Ole Miss fans have grown to expect during the Lane Kiffin era. And I agree. I don't think it's necessarily going to fall off just because Lane Kiffin left for LSU.
Yeah, speaking of Tom Mars, he's the attorney that October 15th of 2018 made the transfer portal the law of the land. He's in Little Rock, and I'd love to get him on this show. Having him as your attorney is like having King Kong or Godzilla as your doorman at your bar. My bet is Trinidad is back at Ole Miss, and who knows where what's his name, Deuce Knight, will be next week.
But here's the thing: if you're Chambliss, don't you look at the NFL and go, "Wait a minute, I'm going to be 24 years old in April."
I didn't know he was that old. Okay,
yeah, I'm going to be 24. I just put together an unbelievable season wherein I stared down that Miami pass rush, and I know that he wasn't able to beat Miami. He still was pressured 17 times, and he was sacked once. It was on the first series of that game. He got an intentional grounding call. But he showed you everything you'd want to see. And in a quarterback class that all of a sudden we're looking at going, well, it's Fernando Mendoza, and then it's probably Dante Moore. But what if Dante Moore doesn't come out? No, Ty Simpson's there. I would take Trinidad Chambliss over Ty Simpson. I would take Trinidad Chambliss over any non-Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza quarterback in this class. I'd be really intrigued if I'm one of those teams picking in the late first round and I'm thinking my quarterback is aging, or maybe you're the Los Angeles Rams or something like that, and you're looking for your future replacement to Matt Stafford or whatever the case may be. I think that he is going to absolutely have a market. So if I'm his team, I'm kind of looking at this going, man, this is going to be kind of a headache over the course of the next few weeks. If I get NFL draft feedback that I like, I can go. And I think he's ready. I think he's ready in ways that a lot of quarterbacks that have only started 1 year at this level usually aren't. Mm-hmm. And to me, I'd be looking at that path probably more than fighting this legal battle.
Well, the number, you got to have 24 to 27 starts in college to be successful in the NFL. Ty Simpson, 15 starts. I mean, when are they going to learn? Look at Anthony Richardson when he came out of Florida. Oh, all the measurables are great. It's the 7-on-7 camp syndrome.
Yeah, the only counterpoint to that, because I agree, I think it's been so overlooked, and people are like, oh yeah, just after 1 year you have to go, and I don't think that's the case at all. And people now point to NIL and say, well, that's a reason why you should come back. There's still risk in it. If Garrett Nussmeier had left after last year, he's in a much different spot. Maybe he only would have been a second-round quarterback. Maybe he would have been a late first after the way that Jackson Dart rose up the draft boards with his competing in the Senior Bowl and how that really benefited him. Mm-hmm. But Garrett Nussmeier really hurt his draft stock by coming back to school. And there's a case to be made that if Ty Simpson comes back to school and goes to the wrong situation instead of staying in the NFL draft, then who knows what it's going to do. If he's getting first round feedback and all of a sudden he doesn't necessarily have the year he's hoping for, or he's banged up and it just doesn't look good, there is still risk in that, even if you're getting financially compensated in ways that you weren't before. Yeah.
And you think about what you just said with Trinidad Chambliss. He's 24 years old. He had a hell of a game and 1 sack, 17 pressures. It was pretty amazing. So you look around DJ Lagway. He's gone from Florida now. Like Brendan said, it's easy to get pulled in by the size, the measurables. We're looking at measurables way too much, and instead of just looking at the obvious, the product and the play on the field. Who are some other, besides Lagway included, talk about him, and other surprises at quarterback and disappointments?
I think Austin Simmons going to Mizzou is really interesting. Speaking of Ole Miss, the guy who was starting over Trinidad Chambliss coming into the season, a guy that I said was a dark horse Heisman Trophy contender, and then he gets off to just a really frustrating start and a couple of favorable matchups wherein he had 2 first-quarter interceptions in both of those 2 starts. And I know that everybody kind of says Trinidad Chambliss, Wally pipped him, but I do think that this was a case in which if he had performed better in those first couple of games, he holds on to that job when he comes back from injury. And instead, Trinidad Chambliss happens and the rest is history. And now we're seeing a situation at Mizzou that is all of a sudden really intriguing. We talked about Kewan Lacey. What about Ahmad Hardy? They are trying to make sure with Austin Simmons as their starting quarterback that it's not just 8-man boxes for Ahmad Hardy, who's going to come back as a preseason All-American, the leading rusher in college football, and is someone that is going to have a lot of eyeballs on him. They need someone that can stretch the field because they really didn't have that this year when Bo Prabula was healthy and when he wasn't healthy. So they're going to a different spot. I think that's really, really interesting. And then Aaron Philo going from Georgia Tech to Florida to play in this Buster Faulkner offense, to stay in this Buster Faulkner offense is super intriguing given the skill set. The guy had the high school record in the state of Georgia for passing yards. He broke Trevor Lawrence's record and showed a lot of promise in those first 2 years and backing up Haynes King, who was a human battering ram for that Georgia Tech offense. I'm fascinated to see kind of what becomes of him, someone that still needs experience, probably some things mechanically in his game to figure out. But I think there's a lot of interesting quarterback moves in the SEC.
Yeah, I don't think any school got hit harder, players leaving, coaches leaving, than Georgia Tech.
And understandably so.
Yeah.
This is the way that things kind of line up. And, when you lose an offensive coordinator who was a big part of your team's identity, that's seen as the type of move that can all of a sudden have a huge butterfly effect. And I think that's been the case. People said, if you're going to go after Brent, if you're going to be able to get Brent Key on your, if you're Florida or you're one of these teams that's looking, if you're going to be able to get him, you better get Buster Faulkner, because a big part of their identity is very much intertwined with him in the way that they like to run that offense. So yeah, Georgia Tech's definitely been hit hard. And I think it's, just kind of a reminder that in this day and age, even a coordinator change can have a massive impact on what your next season outlook looks like.
All right, leave us with this before you go, and really appreciate your time. We need to have you on more often. I know how busy you are, but you work so hard. You put out such great content. What's a storyline or two that you're going to be focusing on in college football? Obviously, the build up to the championship game Monday in Miami is number one, but there's lots of stories. There always are.
Yeah, I mean, what are these college football playoff decision makers going to ultimately come down with? It kind of stinks that they're meeting just before the college football playoff national championship, and then we're going to get this announcement that's going to kind of overshadow some of the buildup. So what's going to happen with expansion there? What's going to happen, too, with some of these remaining portal decisions? I think there are a lot of key roster needs that need to be met. I think that there are programs in the SEC, in Alabama, Georgia, who are all of a sudden going to be spending some really, really big money down the stretch here with the portal closing in the next couple of days. And I think we're going to still see one of these guys where like, whoa, didn't expect to see him in the portal. And all of a sudden it makes a lot more sense. That's going to happen, especially with just one portal window. You can't afford to wait until the spring and all that. So to me, those are going to be the two main topics of conversation, not related to the national championship.
And do you think that the hire Alex Golesh at Auburn, John Sumrall at Florida, and Ryan Silverfield, three, AAC coaches that are now in the SEC, you like them? You have one that you like over the other?
I like the Alex Golesh hire the most. And I've talked about this a lot, so apologies if you've heard me say this before.
No, I haven't.
But I mean, I think Alex Golesh is wired exactly the way that Auburn needs a head coach to be wired. You're not going to find golf scores that are on the internet with him. And I know that he's like, hey, I hate golf. I don't
I saw that.
But that speaks to who he is. He is a grinder in every sense. He was raised by he's a first generation American from Moscow. His parents moved him here for a better life in Brooklyn, and that's where he fell in love with college football. His dad was a truck driver and worked for Little Caesars to make ends meet, and just went to Ohio State and said, I want to coach in college football. I love this sport. And, was able to kind of get an apprenticeship from Jim Tressel, and the way that he's been able to rise through the ranks. It's not a coincidence that he's been able to get to this point. He is a grinder. He will sleep 4 hours a night to be able to rebuild this program. He is a rebuilder as well. That's the thing I question with Ryan Silverfield at Arkansas, is that's not someone who's necessarily been a part of rebuilds in the way that Alex Golesh has. Auburn needs a rebuild, very much so. And I know all these USF transfers coinciding with losing Deuce Knight, losing Cam Coleman, has people kind of scratching their head. But we've seen you can implement group of 5 transfers like Kurt Signetti did in Indiana and have a whole lot of success year one. Not saying it's going to be like that at all, but I do think that Alex Golesh is someone that I'm really high on. Don't know that he takes them to championship level, but I think he's exactly what they need with their, obviously worst 5-year stretch since the Harry Truman administration.
The post-World War II era, it was rough. It's been rough, but hey, great stuff as always. You're one of the best. Are you going to Miami Monday night?
I will be there on Monday. I'm very excited.
God, you're one of the lucky ones. Miami is going to be the hottest place in college football. And Hoosier Nation, I think, takes over South Florida.
I think so too. I really do. And I don't think it's going to be quite what it was in the Peach Bowl. I don't think we're all of a sudden going to see like 95% IU fans. Oregon fans got a raw deal with having to, make that cross country trip twice. Yeah. But to me, I think IU fans are going to be able to show up and have a stronger representation than maybe even the casual fan realizes.
All right, how do they follow you? Social media and everything, because you're out there.
Yeah, appreciate that. At CJ O'Gara, at SatDownSouth on Twitter, SaturdayDownSouth.com. I always tell people just bookmark it. If you would rather be reading about college football, college sports, we've got great college basketball coverage as well. You'd rather be doing that than working. Just bookmark it and spend an afternoon just clicking around on different stories.
I love it, man. We'll do it again soon. Thanks more than you know for your time. Love it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Okay. Let's bring in Yancy. Porter's going to join us here in just a minute. Rebel Yell Hotline. He said he'd be on in just a couple of minutes. Great stuff. A lot of compelling stories in college football. We're going to get into some college basketball. We'll talk to Coach Brady about coming on Thursday with, boy, you talk about Hoop Central with John Hartwell, Matt Dean, talk some college basketball. But right now, through Monday, that's another thing, Brendan. Here it is. It's going to be Monday, January 19th for the CFP National Championship. Normally, it's over first day or two in January. We shift right into basketball. It just shows how big it is. Numerically, here's a stat that'll blow your mind. A couple of years ago, or last year maybe, Texas made over $225 million off of football. That's the highest grossing revenue program in college football. The highest grossing revenue program in America in college basketball was Kansas, the Jayhawks, $38 million. And you think it's big. And this is the problem with the ACC. Ellis is right. Ellis made there's two things. They were stuck on the 800 SAT score forever. And number two, bigger than anything really, you had basketball coaches on Tobacco Road over there at Chapel Hill and Durham running the league. And they thought basketball is bigger. It's not. It is never going to be bigger. It can't even come close to what college football is. But I do think when I said it, I mean it. The SEC is becoming like, if they're not careful, like the ACC in basketball. So dominant, and then just a little bit at a time, year after year, you start losing that depth, and other conferences are coming in. New Mexico pulling people away, as Dave Bartu brought up from Missouri yesterday. Pete Cordelli thinks that's a red flag. Well, it could be looked at two ways. Coaches are leaving because they're really good and people want them, or they're leaving because things aren't good. It's a red flag. So, I mean, time will tell on that one. And I'm looking around at what I see every day. People stop panicking. And my God, what do you do in your own personal business, your own personal life? Things happen, regulations, new laws come in, bills are passed. You have to adapt. You have to change. It's like the weather. You just got to be prepared for it. I don't think the SEC is going to not be competitive. This conference is the best top to bottom in every sport. But what's happening is the Big Ten, because of their ginormous alumni bases, and then financially, they've just got more money. Question is, are they motivated to spend it on athletics? That is the $1 million question.
Well, it's the million. It stems to a bigger question. There are very smart people in this world that say there won't be any colleges in 5 years because of academia. So I think maybe there is a pivot to some degree and say, well, what happens if kids stop going to college very much because enrollment's down, and AI can teach everybody a college course and half the time, and you don't have to pay all that money to go do it. We're seeing that trending in all the way around. So what happens then? What happens when there's no school, which already is? What are we as college football? What's next is like, well, you're going to have to be a league of some sort. That's going to have to be a feeder league to the NFL. That's what you're going to be left with. And I think that the smart people who are really drilling down on the numbers and really looking at the future and forecasting, what they're saying is that, look, this is going to happen sooner than later. It's society as a whole is behind on what's happening with AI and what the future is with that. This isn't like 3D glasses in movie theaters anymore, folks. This is happening. So, and so as AI takes over and we see the enrollment drop for student athletes. So where are the schools going to generate money? Are the schools just going to go to brands? Are we going to see more of a brand and a team and a la European soccer style regional sort of league, or what's going to happen? And I think those are real questions. I think those are real questions that you have to, since the uncertainty is so broad, you're going to have to be, sort of in every sort of place here. And I think right now nobody knows what the next big move is. And unfortunately, this powerful, money grab, greed, all of these things that we have going on are fueling this fire. It's fun right now, but does it stay fun if our schools go away, our kids, stop going
No.
to these things? So again, I think, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. I think it's all in well. I think the game is always going to be all in well. It's just the does it still have the handsome carrying case of going to school and becoming a person and development of character and athlete?
Well, we're going to find out, and I think people look. We have always wondered how many of these kids are serious. Look, you were given. If you don't graduate, don't blame the school. Don't blame the system. Blame yourself. If you are not motivated enough to get a degree, you play football, basketball, sports, you can find time. And I'm tired of hearing, they didn't have enough money to go on a date or buy a pizza. Let me tell you something. You know this. Don't be stupid, people. If you're an athlete at an SEC school, you were given a lot of free drinks and free meals and great deals that other people are not going to get. So spare me, okay? Spare me, Mr. Krabs. The smallest violin in the world. I mean, good grief!
But we're not. But that's not.
But that's an old story that we had to hear though for a long time.
Well,
Look,
I think
now
a lot of people are struggling with the old story. I think people will not realize that the story is gone. It is gone. Like, we have a different game.
You have to adapt.
The game has to pay the players. This is going to happen. To get off my lawn, people are going to have to just go inside.
Yeah, you're going to have to.
It doesn't matter. Go find something else. Go take up pickleball, or I don't know what to tell you. But this is the game. This is what's happening. And it does connect to a lot of things. Hey, I've said this 1,000 times, and I'll probably say it 1,000 more. It wasn't a perfect system by any means. So we took a broken system. Those who've ever tried to reverse engineer something that was broken from the get-go do not realize moreover than anything else that is the hardest way to create something, is to go back and try to fix it. So a broken system just got elevated and elevated and elevated. So I'm not super surprised, but that's the things that we loved about college football, was this insanity of it all, right?
Well, that it is, and that's what drives people. Like, what's happening today? They come to this show. Trust me, we're going to be at the tip of the spear on this stuff. We're the popularity, the TV ratings. They're great. They're awesome. It's the connection that we love as fans to have to the guys that are playing, gals that are playing for our football or basketball or baseball, softball, whatever it is. Hell, you know what I'm talking about. Wow. You want to say that guy, he's there in college like I was. Well, I just don't think. I think right now, since the virus, we've let a lot of stuff slip. We've become a very slack in a lot of things. We need to know, and I hope that these kids are getting an education. You can make a living with your hands. You can make millions with your mind. You better get it. And I want to talk when Yancy joins us here in a moment.
Our minds are AI now. It's like, that's what my point. It's like, we can't make millions with our minds anymore. We have something smarter than all of us already, and that's been created. So our entire structure with academia, and that's why we see the shift to AI and the learning of all this stuff. It's like we have the assisted brain, and it's like a whole new thing for coaches and players and all these things. I'm concerned about, I have a kid that's going to be in high school next year. I want her to go to college, right? Yeah. I want her to have the experience. I would love for her to go to an SEC school.
Yeah.
I would love for her to go to Auburn. I would love for her, someplace to learn character, culture, all these things. I'm afraid that this is in jeopardy. And I would like us to, to somehow realize that this is something that we got to, I feel like, Rob, we're truthsayers in the sense that we're trying to make sure that we hang on to our culture here of what we've known, for all of our lives. And I just want to make sure that it's around for my daughter to enjoy.
I agree all the way on that. And I'm telling you, we've seen changes. Go back when computers came out. There were a lot of people, well-known people that said, why would anyone want a computer in their home? Because
Wait a minute. Breaking news. Yancy Porter is on video. I'm going to bring him in.
Oh,
Yancy Porter.
there he is.
Oh my God. Yancy, are you with us? Are you there? Oh,
Yancy.
You look so great. Oh, he's muted? No, he's not muted. You got it, brother.
Yancy, how you doing?
You there?
Yancy, can you hear us?
Oh, we hear you.
Yeah. Yancy, you got it.
Change your ears, Yancy, to be your Bluetooth headset. So there's a little setting there, and you can just click on it and say audio, and then or turn off your Bluetooth on, and you'll come out of your laptop.
Yeah. Because okay.
Okay.
Yancy, can you hear us at all?
He can, but it's just his mic isn't on. You're just muted. Here, unmute yourself. Let's see.
You got me now?
Yeah. Yep, there we go.
Yeah, brother.
I love it. I'm going to say it. Yancy, this is awesome. Hotty, toddy, gosh almighty, who the hell are we? Hey, flim, flam, bim, bam, Ole Miss by them.
Hey, in the coolest guy way possible. You're a good looking dude, man. I just want you to know you're a handsome TV. Man, brother.
Yeah. And he's from Mississippi, from Hattiesburg and Vicksburg growing up. But Yancy, Audrey and I were pulling. It was like I was pulling for my school. I wanted y'all to win so bad the other night. I have so many of my friends were at the game. I've seen so many pictures. You came up short, but I think the takeaway from this season is from now on, if you try to say they can't do it at Ole Miss, you're dead wrong. And the NIL, the money, the support, the Grove Collective, what Walker Jones is doing, what you report on Rebel Yell Hotline, the best days are ahead of Ole Miss for sure.
Yeah, they just fell a little short there. They didn't play well enough. They brought their C- game. Miami carried out their game plan to perfection.
Yeah,
Miami deserved to win the game. It hurts because Ole Miss was 75 yards away from going to the championship game, right? With a couple minutes left, you score, get your 2 point, you go up 3. But the defense wasn't good enough all night. You got to give Miami had a lot to do with that. They were very, very physical. Reminded me of the Saban days where, pre-Lane Kiffin, where they just like to slam the ball right at you. And it's a very vanilla offense, right? Just quick screens to number 10 a few times to number 0 there. Nothing extravagant. But you got to give Beck credit on that last drive because that was all on his shoulders. Yeah. He did that. That was not I don't think they even ran it one time during that last drive. So, you tip your cap to Miami that they played better. They were the better team that night. Ole Miss didn't bring their A game, and Miami did, and they deserved to win. But you're right. It was a gritty team, and it's just kind of the beginning, right? They feel really good about Chambliss's case, getting him back next year. Really, really good about it. And then dues for the future. So they're sitting at number 6 in the portal right now. They're bringing back 16 starters. Last year, they brought back 2 starters. So
on the whole team.
For the whole team last year. Going into this season, they brought back 2 starters. 20 of the 22 starters left. So now they bring back 16 of the 22. And they really like where they are right now.
Wow. That's an amazing stat. 16 starters back. You look at the case for Trinidad Chambliss, and when that broke Friday, I was out and I texted you, and I think you were still in Arizona. Connor O'Gara was on earlier in this show, Saturday Down South. He said, look at it 2 ways. Connor said Trinidad may look at it and go, I'm almost 24. I had a great game against Miami. I was pressured 17 times, only sacked once. But I'm thinking to myself, look at Bo Nix. He started more games as a starter in college football than anybody, and look at the success that he's having with the Denver Broncos. I would lean toward trying to be like Bo Nix. Go Broncos. That's Brendan's lifelong team. Growing up in Littleton, Colorado. That's what Midwesterners call it. Colorado.
When your dad writes for the Denver Post, there's not a lot of choice there.
That's right. Yancy kind of chime in on that.
With Denver?
No, with Trinidad.
Break it down.
I went all over the place.
With Chambliss?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, he's only played 1 year of D1 football. he's just getting his feet on the ground.
There you go.
You got to realize his first 2 years of D2 football, he never played a snap. He didn't play into his third year until the middle of the year. So you're talking about a guy that really has 2.5 years experience. The year that they're trying to ask back, he didn't take a snap. He didn't practice a day. He didn't take a snap. He had mono repeatedly. He had tonsils out. He had post-COVID. He was sick. And what the NCAA did was disingenuous, and they got showed up by Tom Mars. They put out a statement saying that Ferris State said that he just got beat out and that he really wasn't sick and that this was all just a sham and he just had his tonsils taken out, and really kind of painted a picture that this was one big sham. And then as we see what Ferris State just made a statement saying, we didn't tell the NCAA that. And they actually showed the letter that they sent the NCAA, and the NCAA omitted all of that and then try to win the PR release by just putting out what they wanted to put out. And, it's back to the NCAA, what they were all about from before. And this is why you can't give them autonomy over everything. I mean, they're crooked. They are. They've always been crooked. It's the most crooked organization in America.
It's like Olympic. It's like Olympic committees. They're just. So,
it's just it is the most crooked. And if you give them autonomy where they can control everything like they did before, and then you're going to go back to 10, 12 schools that are compete for championships, and everybody else is left in the dust.
Yeah.
And so this is why it's made football so exciting, because there are teams. I mean, look at what Vandy's doing right now. I think Vandy's 16-0 in men's basketball, women's basketball, competed for the playoffs. I mean, it's you can't get any better than this right now.
You can't. And
the NCAA is not able to control everything.
Yeah. Well, and Brendan's right. Those international Olympic committees, what could possibly go wrong? Everything. It's awful. And tell you what's amazing to me. You show up with Tom Mars or another local attorney there in Oxford, Steve Faris. It's like showing up on a search warrant with Godzilla and King Kong and Buford Pusser. Good luck beating them. Tom Mars is the one who made the transfer portal the law of the land. So there you go. Yancy, God, it's a big story. Thank you. I'm glad you said what you said. You're a truth broker.
Well, I mean, it's a shame that the NCAA, it just goes to show that they will lie, steal, and cheat you even to this day. And it's, you get Trinidad, someone like that that's played 1 year D1 football and played a year and a half of D2 football, and you're supposed to get 4 years. And the NCAA's motto is we're supposed to be fair to our student athletes. And then you deny them, but that's okay. I mean, I've spoken to people high in their camp, and I said, you probably just want this injunction to go through a senior season just like everybody else and then let it go. They're like, no, we want this to go to court.
Yeah.
We don't want to delay the injunction and not go to court. We want it to go to court. We want everybody to know what the NCAA is about and to set precedent. They're not trying to say everybody should get 6th, 7th years. They're saying that everybody should get your 4 years. Yeah. That's all it is. It's not about getting a 5th or 6th or 7th. It's about getting your 4 years, even if it's not in 5 years. If you are sick, illness, or physical injuries, you should still get your 4 years. That's all it's about.
Yancy, was the official word that he had tonsils out? Was that it? Did you hear?
What happened was
what they said?
He had mono twice, and as you know, when you have mono, your spleen can rupture. There's all kind of bad things that happen to your organs. You can't play college football.
Well, I was saying, look, I had my tonsils and adenoids out when I was 21.
Yeah,
I to this day, the most painful 3 weeks of my life. I couldn't move for 3. I mean, depleted, like horrible deal. Like no way around it. So if that had something to do with it, people have to understand that that's a major deal.
Yeah, that he ended up. The end result was that he got his tonsils and adenoids taken out, like you did. But they had 91 pages of documentations from doctors from August before the season started, from September, October, November, December, documenting his illness all the way through. And the NCAA acted like they did after they had called Ole Miss, and Ole Miss even recorded the official and said, "We have all your needed documents. It's more than sufficient." And then they come out and say that they didn't have enough documents and it wasn't sufficient. So it's just, you know, and there's probably people in the NCAA's ear that don't want Chambliss back for competition reasons. And that's, again, they try to protect it where only about a dozen schools can compete. And that's why the antitrust laws cannot apply to the NCAA, because they show that they're the most corrupt organization in American history.
Yeah, and they're terrified of the antitrust laws because those are the only ones that apply to them. My attorney, Jack Turner's told me repeatedly, they have been crucifying schools for a century and change on circumstantial evidence. You know, I'm not a lawyer, but
broken up, and it will be at some point. You're going to have, you know, these 65 schools that are going to go in their own. They're going to split up in 4 conferences and have the 4 play each other, you know, championships and stuff like that. 65 schools, and it's eventually going to come, and they're going to have their own committee, and the NCAA and their corruption will be done.
Well, it is tough because getting people trying to convict someone of murder without a body is very difficult. And circumstantial evidence, for decades, there was a football aristocracy, a cabal. And that's exactly what it was. If you look at the numbers on the non-CFP bowl games, we brought this up Friday and again yesterday, 2.7 million views per game last year, 3.1 million plus this year, increase of 13%. The eyeballs are coming. They want to see this expanding, bringing in Ole Miss and Ole Miss's fan base saying, hey, we got a chance.
Everybody has a chance.
Yeah.
Everybody has a chance. This is the best era of college athletics because they broke up the NCAA and them protecting 10 schools, 10, 12 schools each year. It is giving everybody a chance.
Yeah,
Ole Miss in the Final Four, Indiana in the Final Four, Vanderbilt's undefeated, almost made the playoffs, undefeated in women's and men's basketball. It's just everybody has a chance, and that's all anybody ever wanted, right?
Yeah.
It's Star Wars, man. The Empire, you got like, you know, the rebels, like the whole thing. It's like classic story of these, you know, of David versus Goliath. Well, now Goliath's got a whole bunch of cash, and like, you know, might be a little bit of different story now, son.
It really is.
And like, you know,
it's how well can you get your alumni base organized to give you a chance to win? You know, you're going to have a chancellor, an athletic director, and your collective, who's ever school's collective, the leader of that collective, are going to have to work hand in hand and go and march forward and get the masses. What happens is ADs and the collective leaders, they get lazy. And Ole Miss was guilty of this back in the past. And they want to call the same 20, 25 donors and say, give me $1 million, $2 million, right?
Yeah.
But that's only sustainable for so long.
Correct.
You have to get 6, 10, 12, 13,000 people giving, whether it's $100 a month or 20 a month or 20 a year, students or whatever. You got to get masses of people giving money to your university to make things work.
Yeah, but we're about out of time, and I'll tell you, that's exact. Even when you have a great book of business, you still need to do some cold calling. Not all the time, because cold calling really is revenge for not asking for enough referrals. Yancy, look great. Let's do this again next week.
Yancy, who do you got winning the game?
Yeah.
Whew, man, I mean, I tell you what, I'm very interested if Indiana can. You know, Miami won the game on first downs. They were getting 4, 5, 6 yards every run on first down. I think they ran the ball on first down every time but one time. And so if Indiana can hold them to 3 or less on first down, and then I think Indiana wins the game. But if Miami averages 4 or 5 yards rushing on first down, Indiana ain't going to be able to beat them. I'm not accusing Indiana of anything, but doesn't it look like they know what plays are coming?
Yeah.
It just gives me a Jim Harbaugh, Michigan feeling like, what is really going on over there in Indiana? And I'm not accusing them of anything, but, man, they certainly seem like they've got the playbook before the play even comes every single down. He's either the best coach that's ever lived or something fishy's going on over there. I don't know. That's just me.
It is bizarre. Yancy will.
You and I wear the same hat, my friend.
Yeah.
Maybe I got a tinfoil hat, but man, they're the most well-coached team in the history of football, or something fishy's going on.
It is strange. Yeah, we're going
very strange. It's too weird.
We're going to find out, man. Yancy, have a blessed day. This is awesome. We'll do it again next week. We can put you out on Reels. You'll be everywhere. Thank you so much.
I'm going to make you a superstar. Thanks, buddy.
You too. Everybody have a blessed day.
Will do. Hey, let's say Landers Ford, folks, Memphis.com. Ask for Brad Bellamy, the GM. Open every day except Sunday. Hewlett and Dunn, Rumble Boxing, and HempForPros.com. Look, great show, everybody. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Everybody go out, have a great day. Find ways to make other people's lives even better. It'll make yours even better. So thanks for watching. For executive producer Brendan Martin. See you tonight on The Lowdown with Lauren Meadows right here on this here channel.